Hey guys, I'm Susan Prather. I'm a nurse practitioner, family nurse practitioner. I'm also board certified in anti-aging and restorative medicine, and I'm also in an integrative medicine master's program for a second master's through George Washington University. And I own the Way Clinic, and I really want to make sure that I encourage you guys to really support your immune system during this time. There's a lot of things that are really going against us at this point. And so I thought I would put together a quick little video and slideshow to kind of give you some boosts and some pointers that you can do at home. Having said that, the things that I'm going to mention today, obviously you should check with your own provider, or we would be happy to go over some of your options as well here before you start any specific diet, exercise, or supplement regimen. So I'm actually going to share my screen and have you guys be able to see my PowerPoint slide as I speak through that. And we're going to get started. Okay, so I entitled this, "A Mask is Not Your Only Defense," because right now it seems that everyone is thinking just a mask is all I need in order to take care of myself. And realistically right now, that is one level of defense, but it is not your only level of defense in order to boost your immune system. So first of all, I spoke real quickly about who I am, but I will tell you just briefly, I had a lot of health issues myself and had gone through a lot of different providers in the conventional world with no answers. And until I stepped outside of the conventional world and really started to look at things like diet and nutrition and genetics and all of the things that were actually playing a role in my own health issues, I didn't actually get better. And that's why I am so just passionate about making sure that everybody has a thorough workup, outside the box workup, and that their care is personalized. And so that's why I started the Way Clinic. So we're going to talk about the importance of your digestive system in your immune health, as well as toxins, probiotics, and even vitamins and supplements that can be helpful as well. So first of all, this might be a simple definition and you might already know this, but digestion is defined as the process where your body follows to break down the food you eat into smaller components that can be absorbed into the bloodstream. Mechanical digestion occurs in the mouth, where food is physically chewed and broken down into smaller pieces. And chemical digestion occurs in the gastrointestinal tract, where the food is broken down by digestive enzymes into smaller molecules that can be absorbed into the bloodstream and utilized by the body. So if those things are not acting appropriately, then you're not able to utilize your nutrients and your immune system is not supported. So your gut health is very, very important for your immune system as well as your mind. And we're going to explore that in a little bit more detail. So these are a couple of things that can actually disrupt your gut flora, which is the bacteria, the good bacteria that you have in your gut. Obviously, antibiotics would be a large one. That's something that we consistently tend to take, and we don't think about how to replenish our gut microbiome. We also typically, if we have a poor diet, which most people have the standard American diet, which we laughingly refer to as the SAD diet, it is also not good for improving your gut microbiome and actually improving your immune system. Chronic stress can certainly play a role in how your gut functions as well. Environmental toxins, those would be things that we put on our skin, things that we eat that have toxic chemicals on them, as well as the things that we have in our environment, in our air. And then there are things like low stomach acid and not being able to move the bowels. Those can also be problematic as well. And then toxic overload if you have issues with like heavy metals, mercury, things like that. So stress, digestion, and immunity. So when the body is stressed, it cannot properly detoxify our function. Stress raises our cortisol and our insulin levels, and it results in blood sugar imbalances, hormonal issues, weight gain, and toxicity. Stress is one of the biggest toxins that we have. When you stress, your gut lining gets inflamed and the microbiome is disrupted. 80% of your immune system is located in your gut. The intestinal immune system produces more antibodies than the rest of the body put together, and gastrointestinal secretions are as rich as in breast milk in health, supporting and disease preventing factors. Learning simple tools in reducing and managing stress is essential for fighting off even the common cold. So what kind of types of stress do we have? first of all, cellular stress. This one tends to be one that we don't think about that much, but especially the tight junctions in the gut. That's how our cells and our gut lining are supposed to be kind of tight together. And sometimes over time, those tight junctions get kind of loose because of inflammation, and we wound up with some food allergies and food sensitivities, and that can actually cause stress on the body. We talked about environmental toxins. Genetics and epigenetics. A really common issue is MTHFR gene mutation, and that is a specific mutation in your genes that keeps you from being able to methylate folic acid, which just basically means put a methyl group on to folic acid as you're breaking it down. And so if you're taking a regular folic acid and you have MTHFR gene mutation, then you can't methylate appropriately, and you're wasting your time taking that folic acid. So it's important to know whether or not you have a gene mutation like that. Obviously, microbial dysbiosis, like that means an imbalance in your microbiome or in the bacteria in your gut. Sometimes we can have too much bad bacteria and not enough good bacteria, as well as even sometimes too much yeast, especially if we like to eat a lot of sugar. And then there are molecular things. That first thing says SIRS. That's actually the disease process that I have. It's called chronic inflammatory response syndrome. It's actually a mold illness. It means that when I get into a situation where I'm exposed to mold, my body has a hard time getting rid of the toxins and detoxifying. And that is actually what was going on with me and was missed by all the other providers that I'd seen. So nutritional issues like deficiencies in B vitamins, D vitamin, vitamin C. There are lots of different things. I see that vitamin D is a really, really common deficiency, and most people don't even know that they have that. And especially even in people who say, oh, I've been in the sun, I stay in the sun. I have farmers who are in the sun all the time and they still have a really low vitamin D level. And then of course there's psychosocial things like stress, stress of job issues, stress of relationships. And I know right now there's a lot of stress that's psychosocial at the moment. So both physical and psychological stressors have both been implicated in the development of disease, and numerous animal and human studies have demonstrated the effects of stressors on immune function. So we found that regularly scheduled relaxation modulates that overactive immune system, and it helps you to get into that relaxation response. So one of the things I posted on here is a mindful breathing activity. Feel free to go in to try that out. Basically, it's taking a deep breath in for 4, holding your breath for 4, and then blowing out over an 8-second period of time, not holding your breath for more than 7. So it's called a 4-7-8 breathing technique. There's also things called box breathing, where you breathe in 4, out 4, in 4, like that. All those things, I know that sounds really silly and really simple, but realistically, your brain recognizes that as a reason to calm down. And when you can calm your brain down, you can calm down your stress level and your cortisol level, and thereby make your immune system better. So one thing that I thought was really interesting is that we found that social isolation correlates with increased cortisol and inflammatory cascades, and loneliness correlates with increased expression of pro-inflammatory genes. So right now, while we're social distancing, don't socially isolate. Still spend some time with your friends in some capacity, obviously not in person, but either on an app or by phone or FaceTime or text message or old school letter, however you want to do it, but don't isolate yourself during this time because it is not helpful for your immune system. As far as lifestyle goes, it can be really tempting to over-exercise, especially if you're trying to reach a goal weight. You say, oh, I've got to really, really buckle down and exercise. Well, what happens when you do that, though, is that prolonged training can actually increase your risk for infection, and it can also suppress your immune system. So, and the reason is because you're losing your plasma glutamine concentration. So my recommendation is not to over-exercise, but to moderately exercise. Don't do vigorous, high-intensity exercise unless that's something that you were already doing, your body was already used to during this time. But don't decide now's the time to do really super high-intensity exercise. You need to exercise every day because it does increase your endorphins, your mood, it reduces anxiety, and improves your sleep. And sleep is really important because we found that even mild sleep deprivation can cause elevation in inflammatory markers such as CRP. So it's important to get good restful sleep right now. So what about the gut and the immune system? So this is a quote from Chris Kessler. In a healthy gut, the trillions of microorganisms that inhabit the small and large intestines make up a symbiotic, harmonious community known as the gut microbiome. Your gut bacteria can impact everything about your health, including how your brain responds to stress, how well your body can digest certain carbohydrates, the health of your immune system, how you store fat, and much, much more. If your gut microbiome is disrupted, it can cause dysbiosis, which leads to chronic illness. One of the interesting things about gut bacteria that we found is that they're almost little messengers telling us what we should eat. So when you've had a lot of poor dietary habits and you eat a lot of what we call bad foods or high sugar foods, your gut starts to tell you that you need more of that. And it's those little bacteria in your gut that are actually driving that decision-making process, which is really kind of sad that those little tiny microorganisms can tell us what to do. So how can we improve our digestion and our microflora? So a couple things. Number one, we have to stay hydrated. We have to drink half of our body weight in ounces of water a day. That's a lot of water, and most people do not drink that. The standard 8-ounce glasses is not enough. You need to look at what your weight is, half that, and that's the number of ounces of water. And that's water, not a caffeinated beverage, not anything with sugar in it, not a Coke. Those don't count. Also, be sure to include prebiotic and probiotic foods. We're going to talk a little bit more about those in just a minute. And then eat plenty of high fiber veggies, which helps to actually maintain that healthy digestive system. Limit and avoid any processed foods or foods high in sugars, artificial sweeteners, or trans fats. And limit or avoid any foods which you're sensitive to or intolerant to. If you're not sure what you're sensitive or intolerant to, but you know you have a lot of gastric upset after eating certain foods, we actually do food sensitivity testing here, a couple different options. So we can actually tell you what foods you're having an issue with. And then take antibiotics only when you have to. And as soon as you finish any kind of antibiotic course, make sure you're doing some probiotics or eating some probiotic foods. So probiotics actually help balance the good bacteria in your gut, and that's basically what they are, is good bacteria. We have good and we have bad bacteria in our gut. So this actually helps to balance it. We've actually found that when you have more bad bacteria than good bacteria, you tend to be more overweight. And also having those good bacteria helps to improve your immunity. Prebiotics are basically, people ask me this a lot, what is a prebiotic? It's an insoluble fiber that is actually acting like a food for probiotics. So it's basically something to help the probiotics grow. So these are a couple of examples. Also, here's a list that you can look at as well, and I'll try to load these slides so that everyone will have an option to look at it as well after the fact. But those are some pre and probiotic foods that you can add into your diet. So how else can we support a stronger immune system? Couple things. First of all, changing the diet, cutting out toxins, making sure you're sweating. Most of us, we use all kinds of antiperspirants and everything to keep us from sweating, but our body's natural mechanism for detoxification is to sweat. So if you're going to use those things, do a hot mag salt bath that helps you to sweat and get rid of toxins. Definitely the breathing exercises we talked about, and then journaling sometimes can be helpful as well. So we're going to ditch processed foods, added sugar, gluten, and dairy if we can. We're going to try to eat more organic, whole foods. We're going to focus on veggies and greens because those are helpful for our immune system. We're going to try to include probiotic-rich foods and drinks, and we're going to do some lemon water as well. That'll help detoxify you and hydrate you. Then we're going to try to cut out toxins such as plastics. Look at our personal care products. I always like to tell my patients that there's an app called Think Dirty that actually you can scan all your products and it will tell you how bad a product is. Also, artificial fragrances and smoking. Obviously, if we want to cut those things out, that's certainly not going to help you right now if your lungs are struggling before you ever get in contact with any kind of illness. As far as switching out, try to store things in glass instead of plastic. And then using natural products, you can look at the EWG database for good choices. That's also an app called, I think it's called Skin Deep, that tells you it's the same thing about this personal care products, but you can also look at your organic fruits and veggies and lists of things like that. And then you can also make sure that your essential oils, if you're using those, are good, pure essential oils. If you're getting those over the counter at Walmart, I hate to tell you, they are not good. They are contaminated with lots of things that you do not want to be putting on your skin or in your mouth for sure. So I personally use Young Living brand essential oils, and I have the utmost faith in their ability to produce a good quality product. They own all their own farms, and that way they have the ability to look at from seed to seal what is going on with that product. And then we want to limit caffeine and alcohol. And I know right now you're stuck at home. You might think now's the time to have a party. It's not. It's not going to help you out from an immune system response. And then we want to sweat. Like I said before, skin is a detox organ. So doing things like sauna, exercises that stimulate lymph flow, like rebounding. That's the jumping on the trampoline. If you don't know what that is, those little small trampolines. It actually helps with your lymphatic flow, and your lymph is your system that gets rid of toxins. Breathing, deep breathing helps you relax. We talked about that. And then journaling, like we said before, can also help with reducing some stress, and it can help with negativity, and you can record some gratitude as well, which is a lot of times helpful when you're kind of in a negative headspace, to look at the things that you have that are positive right now. All right, so nutrition, let's talk about that. First of all, glycemic load. This is really, really important. So we talk about foods being high in sugar. Well, they can be high in sugar, but they have a different glycemic load. And that's how your body is going to break it down. Is it going to be fast, or is it going to be slow? This is just kind of the brief, simple version of this. So if it's a high glycemic food, index food, then it's going to be quickly broken down, and your blood sugar is going to spike, and then you're going to have an insulin spike, and then you're going to have a storage of fat. If it's a lower glycemic index food, you're going to have a more steady, slow increase in your blood sugar, and you won't have that insulin spike and fat storage. So it's really important to know what the glycemic load is, mainly because we found that glycemic load also plays a role in the effects of diet. For example, middle-aged women who consumed a single high glycemic index meal showed an increase in C-reactive protein. That's the inflammatory marker we spoke of earlier. And in obese and overweight individuals consuming identical macronutrient density, but with one group eating a high glycemic and the other eating a low glycemic, the C-reactive protein decreased in the low glycemic index group. So for all individuals, high sugar, high glycemic meals trigger low-grade inflammation. And that results in destructive and immune triggering advanced glycation end products, promoting inflammation and chronic disease, including autoimmune diseases. So it's really important right now that we avoid high sugar foods. It's easy when we're sitting at home, we're kind of bored. We're like, what can I put in my mouth right now? Choose something that's whole. And if you've just got to have something sweet, let it be a fruit. Don't get something that's out of a box or a bag or a can. For men, 37.5 grams a day of sugar, and for women, 25 milligrams a day of sugar. So those are milligrams, I'm sorry. All right, so this is a list of hidden foods, things that can have sugar in it that you maybe wouldn't think has sugar. Obviously some of those you would, but mayonnaise, for instance, salad dressings, sauces, soups, even yogurt, sometimes you would think they don't have sugar, but they do. So it's really important. And then these others are things that if you're trying to avoid kind of allergy foods, eggs, milk, soybeans, and wheat, there's a list there that those could potentially be in as well. All right, and then there's fasting. Now, I'm not a huge fan of fasting personally, because I don't ever tend to do that very well. Having said that, we do know that calorie restriction, fasting, and inducing ketosis have actually helped with immune regulation and reduced autoimmune diseases. And so it's important to think about that as an option for yourself. Having said that, it's not appropriate for all patients, and it should be supervised by your provider. So make sure that you discuss it with your provider before you go into a fasting or a ketosis type diet. Protein. It's really important that we have enough adequate protein. If we don't have enough protein, we can't make enough amino acids, and we can't have a good immune function. So it's really important that we actually have good high quality protein. We know that malnourishment has been known to correlate with impaired gastrointestinal immunity and integrity, and the lack of adequate protein increases the gut's permeability and changes the immune response, which is what I was talking about earlier about the tight junctions in the gut being permeable or loose. Then we got to make sure that we have enough of our essential fatty acids. And so a lot of people take fish oil supplements, and that's fine. When you're taking a fish oil supplement, you really need to know where it is sourced. That means where are they getting the fish from? Because if you just get any old fish oil from the pharmacy or from, Walmart, then you are going to be getting some mercury in that fish oil, and you don't want to do that. So it's really important to choose a good high quality fish oil. I use one particular brand here because of a lot of research that I've done just to find that that was the one that had the best type of fish oil and the best ratios. So it's really, really important to do that. Now, the other way you can get these essential fats is obviously through eating those fats. So this is a list of some potential essential fatty acids that can be helpful. Obviously, things like avocado and olive oil are also good, because if you're eating a lot of trans fats and things like that, those are obviously going to increase your markers of inflammation as well. Phytonutrients. So these are basically the colors that you see in bright, colorful fruits and fruits and veggies are actually caused by the phytonutrients. And so high phytonutrient diet not only correlates with the decreased risk of frailty in the elderly, but it also supports your overall health. And the polyphenols that come from that have garnered increased interest from researchers and clinicians as safe, effective immune modulators. A couple of examples would be flavonoids, resveratrol, and green tea. So resveratrol comes from grapes, or what we see in wine. Obviously green tea, we know what that is. And then we have micronutrients. Now this is where there becomes a lot of debate. A lot of people say, oh, I don't need to take vitamins because, I'm just going to make really expensive urine. Well, that may be the case if your gut's in a really good situation and you're really, really healthy. If you're not healthy, then you're probably not absorbing your nutrients well. And sometimes that requires some supplementation in order to get you back to a place where you don't need those nutrients to prop you up anymore. Having said that, there's a lot of speculation back and forth. The recommended daily allowances or dietary reference intakes are just right above what should be a deficiency. And so obviously there's not really great clear standards about when we should supplement or when we shouldn't supplement, but realistically, if you're not within that normal range and realistically towards the higher end of that normal range, then the likelihood is that you're having some micronutrient deficiencies. Now, we do specific micronutrient testing here, so we can actually tell you what areas you have an issue in and specifically supplement you until you get back to a normal range. And we also do IV micronutrients as well for people who have a lot of micronutrient deficiencies or immune issues. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes as well. So these are a couple of foundational immune support supplements. These are just things, if you're not taking them, then you should be taking them. Again, speak with your physician or your nurse practitioner before you do add anything, but these are just helpful for immune support. That's fish oil or fatty acids, 1 to 2 grams a day. Magnesium, 400 to 600, preferably magnesium glycinate. There's a lot of different kinds of magnesium available. Most people don't realize that there's a difference between them, but there is. Magglycinate tends to be the most helpful from a cardiovascular perspective. Magcitrate helps the most with, bowels and movement. And then things like magthreonate is helpful for relaxation and stress. Those are just a couple. Vitamin D, preferably vitamin D3, because it's better absorbed, anywhere from 2,000 to 5,000 units a day, depending on where you live. Having said that, though, you can have too much vitamin D, so you do want to be tested before you add vitamin D supplementation in. All right, so this is a COVID-19 recommendation for nutraceuticals and botanicals that the Institutes of Functional Medicine put out. And so I'm going to go through in a little bit more detail on a couple of these. I'm not going to go through every one of them, but obviously this is available. The links are listed there below where you can go and download this yourself as well. But this is what they're recommending to help enhance your immune system if you were to get COVID-19 and or for prevention. Okay. Ooh, I think I went too far. Nope. Okay. I'm sorry, give me just a second. There we go. Okay, so turmeric or curcumin. I'm not going to go into all the detail that I've listed on each of these slides, but we know this is an anti-inflammatory herb. The typical dose is 750 to 1,500 milligrams a day. And you do want it to be standardized with the curcuminoids being 90 to 95%. And typically that has black pepper extract added so that it will last longer. Otherwise, the turmeric is only lasting for a couple of hours in your system. Usually we use this in autoimmune diseases or in any kind of inflammatory disease maybe even in joint pain for improvement in inflammation. Quercetin, this is an anti-inflammatory, anti-allergic herbal, and very, very good to help with seasonal allergy symptoms. The typical dose is 500 to 1,000 milligrams 3 times a day, and it can be found in a lot of different things, but I've linked a list of foods that may have extra quercetin, one of which being red raspberries. Then there's zinc. Obviously, a lot of people you hear about trying to take zinc right now, so it has a lot of antiviral properties. These are a couple of lists of things that have high zinc content, especially oysters of all things, which I think is kind of interesting. And then game meats like deer and bison also have a good bit of zinc. N-acetylcysteine, this is actually sort of a precursor to glutathione, which is an antioxidant in our body that helps with immune support. There's been a lot of studies that say that this is helpful, and it's been even helpful with cough and fatigue and things like that. And so this one's actually been pretty good for any kind of chronic bronchitis or airway obstruction. So obviously during this time, this would be a good option. Vitamin D, we briefly discussed that earlier. We know that it stimulates the immune system and it downregulates the activity of mature immune cells and dampens autoimmune responses. And then like we talked about earlier, you need to make sure that you're on the right dosing, and you want your level to be between 60 and 80 on your vitamin D level when we actually draw your blood. And then these are a couple of lists of food sources that have vitamin D, and obviously getting out into the sun helps within reason. Having said that, I've seen a lot of people who had issues with converting that vitamin D, even though they're in the sun significant amount of time. So then there's vitamin A. The recommendation is for 12,500 IUs a day. And then this is also a list of different vitamin A containing food sources as well. Then of course, vitamin C, we hear a lot about vitamin C. Everybody's probably taking that right now. Every time I've tried to order this for my supplements, it's been pretty much out of stock because everybody knows immune system requires some vitamin C to help to fight off infection. They've actually been using vitamin C in IVs in high doses in hospitals and ICUs to treat COVID. So we do know that it's already effective for that specifically, but we know it's effective in boosting your immune system anyway. We do IV micronutrients like we talked about earlier, and we do high dose vitamin C IVs as well here. So that is always an option if you're getting sick as well. Then we have green tea. Obviously that's got a lot of anti-inflammatory mechanisms. The typical dosing, if you just do ECGC, is 200 milligrams 3 times a day, but obviously you can drink the teas and get those same kinds of effects that decrease inflammation, and even some cancer prevention has been found with that. So then there's ginger, also anti-inflammatory. 500 to 1,000 milligrams 3 times a day is important. Now you could just put ginger into your shakes and smoothies if you like the taste. That's a little bit difficult for me. I'm still learning how to do that. Then there's a lot of different medicinal mushrooms. Make sure that you don't have any issues with mold illness like I did, because if so, these are obviously moldy foods, and so you do have to be aware of that. There are a lot of supplements that contain mushrooms as well, if you don't want to just eat mushrooms. Amino acids are also important. L-glutamine especially is really important for the cells of the immune system, and especially your gut. And so a lot of times when someone has a gut that's permeable, we typically add glutamine to help heal that gut lining. And then one of the things that has a good bit of glutamine in it is bone broth. And so right now, make you some soups and stews and start with some bone broth, preferably organic. Also listed a list of foods there at the bottom of this slide as well for glutamine. And then there's a lot of different botanicals. I'm not going to go into all of these, but you've probably heard of them. Aloe vera, astragalus, ashwagandha, echinacea. You've probably heard of those before and seen those in your immune boosting supplements over the counter. Ashwagandha is really good for not just your immune response, but also to help with your cortisol and your stress response as well. So this is sort of a brief slide explaining what you should do to prevent any kind of upper respiratory infections, and then to treat any respiratory infections that are upper respiratory. So those are kind of a list of what you would want to do. We even have supplements that combine these things. We have one called Olive Defense that's really good. Anytime you start to get a little, viral thing coming on, it can be helpful just to boost your immune system. So I appreciate you taking time to listen to this, and I hope that it's been helpful for you. If you have any questions, please feel free to message me privately or give us a call at the clinic. The number is 662-545-4599, or you can email us at thewayclinic@gmail.com. There's also a link in the comments or the chat to our promotions page on thewayclinic.com under resources and promotions. If you would like to sign up for our metabolic code screening, it is free. And it is a questionnaire that gives me a really good idea of where you might have a specific issue with either your gut or your hormones or allergies or your thyroid. It could be any number of things, and it would help us kind of determine what would be the best next steps for you to help boost your own immune system and also just to have overall wellness. So if you're interested in that, go and check that out. And I hope this has been helpful for you. And I hope you have a great day.